Okay. Salam, everyone. Welcome once again to yet another session of My Sai and I. As you all know, every month in, month out, we have our YA sharing, and this month too, we have two energetic YAs. First is someone I know pretty well, in Ashish. Um, and again, he's been such an active part of especially the musical journey here in Region 10. And then Sister Amita, she's moved to Austin pretty recently, but a product of Dallas. And I can see Chitra and Tian and stuff. So I guess all of you guys may know her from Dallas. So with that being said, Ashish, if you could just lead us through initial prayer, and then can I introduce yourself before you take it away? Sorry, Ram. You're muted, by the way.
Oh, sorry. Salam, everyone. My name is Ashish Sonde. As Sriram said, I'm from Houston, Texas, born and raised. Many of you have known me for a very long time, since I've been here pretty much my entire life. Um, and it is an honor to kind of be here sharing my experiences and my journey with Swami and with the Satya Sai Baba Center. Um, and so when I was asked to kind of like share my thoughts and experiences with Swami, one of the things that kind of struck out to me when I look back on how he's guided me, how he's kind of been there every aspect of my life, was the fact that I am blessed to kind of be around people and be um, surround myself with people with similar values, with similar kind of thought processes, and that's all courtesy of the Sai Center. And you know, Swami has always said, show me your company and I'll show you who you are. And, when I was younger, that didn't quite make sense to me because, like, it's like, oh, I can make friends with anybody. Like, what does my company have to do with me, right? I'm an
Hmm.
independent entity. Nobody really has much of an effect on me as I thought it did. And
Yeah.
so, those of you who had known me for a very long time know that I was extremely hyper, like as a child. Like I was bopping all over the place. Usually, parents would be like, "Hey, try not to be like Ashish," because I was just a mess, complete mess. Never stood still in one place. I was always up to some mischief, always getting myself into trouble. And so, you know, when growing up, my both of my parents were into the Sai fold. And so Sai Center was one of those things on Sunday. In my eyes, that took away from playtime and TV time. And so it was like, oh, I had to go to the Sai Center. I had to do this, I had to do that. So I never had like much of an appreciation as a very, very young kid because I wanted to play outside. I wanted to watch cartoons. That was kind of my priorities at the time. And so my father had actually enrolled me into tabla classes, and I didn't like those either because that took up the other half of the Sundays. So first half of the Sunday was tabla classes, second half of the Sunday was Sai Center, no time for cartoons. And so that was kind of sad for me as a child, at least in the beginning. And so over time, it just kind of became a routine theme between tabla classes and Sai Center. And when you move up through the Balvikas programs into group 3 and 4, you start to become a little bit more older. You start to become more mature. You start to see things that you didn't see as a child. And so one of the things that I had noticed was something we had talked about in SSE that Sunday, and they were talking about something along the lines of like forgiveness or whatnot. And one of the examples that they gave in class directly happened to me in real life that same week. And while that event was going on, I don't remember what it was, but while it was going on, I was just flashbacking continuously to that previous Sunday that I wasn't paying attention to. And I was
Hmm.
like, man, if I had just paid attention a little bit more, I would have known how to deal with the situation. And so then following Sunday, I came with like a lot more rigorous kind of focus, and I was a lot more like uh attentive to what was being taught because what just happened to me, what I thought was like fictional, actually happened to me in real life. And the more I started like looking into it, the more the dots kind of connected to me that a lot of what is taught in SSE, a lot of the values are very, very fundamental and very, very applicable and real in the real world. And so when I became a group 4 student, um, a lot of what my teachers were teaching me, a lot of the lessons that were taught um, were extremely valuable to me as a child. And so I did, even with like SAT and ACT and college apps, I would make it a point every Sunday to go to SSC to ensure that like I'm getting all the lessons and all the applications I could possibly get. Because for the first time, I understood why I needed those applications and why it was so imperative that um, that I understood these types of things. And now that I'm a young adult, I am now exposed to the big world where everything isn't sunshine and rainbows, right? Up until elementary school, it's all you're all kind of sheltered in under your parents, under your teachers, and there's rules and guidelines. But once you become an adult, it's a lot harder for those rules and guidelines to still be in effect. And so when looking out in the real world and meeting different types of people, you start to notice a lot of discrepancies with the way people are raised, with the way their hardships are, and it kind of makes you appreciate the entire thing in a nutshell. And so when I'll be like looking or meeting people and I'm like, wow, like my parents raised me right. I'm proud of the way I was grown. I was proud the way I'm groomed. It gives you a different sense of appreciation. One of the things that made me appreciate that sense was service. And so once I understood the essence of SSC, that was kind of like my high school days, whereas I understood the concept of and the importance of SSC. When I got to college, I went to the University of Houston. So I was commuting to and from Houston a lot. And so because of that, I got a lot of exposure to a lot of the SEVA projects that were done in Houston. And the first part of my college, I was heavily, heavily active with all the SEVA projects, whether it was Sandwich SEVA, Breakfast SEVA. But one of the things that really stood out was the hurricane SEVAs that we did. In 2017, Harvey hit Houston, and of course, then you also had the hurricanes that had hit Louisiana. So there was a lot of ongoing house rebuilding and a lot of supplies that were being sent from all over Texas into Houston and then driving it out to Louisiana or distributing it within Houston. And like through all of those hardships, it kind of like made me realize as a community how important it is for us to kind of be together and work together to ensure that we're kind of having a common goal and a common type of um, just sense of communalship. And when you're planning and when you're deep into the logistics of a Seva project that vast, coordinating with nationally amongst Psi centers that are sending in stuff, the logistics, the planning is you don't really understand it until you're in it. And the amount of like patience, the amount of attentive to detail, every last item was inventoried. It was just a remarkable um, kind of thing to kind of see in overall in that area. But I still wasn't quite into the size center fold, if that makes sense. So up until that point, I was kind of loosely there. I was kind of paying attention, kind of not. But my connection with Swami wasn't the strongest still. And that was due to just a lot of skeptical things, a lot of things weren't going right. And so it was just overall a very, very rough transition into my young adult life. And so I was very lost as a kid. I was not as a kid, but as a young adult. I didn't know who I was. I was still trying to figure myself out, who I am as a person, what I stood for, and it was just a very, very very challenging time for me. A lot of things weren't going right. And so time moved on, and my entire life changed in 2019. And in 2019, um, I was interning, and my dad came to me and he was like, "Hey, there's this conference that's going on. I think you should go for it." And I was like, I don't really like conferences. Like, there's like, it's not something that kind of revolves in for me. Like, Seva projects are a little bit more my way, but I'm not really into, guest speakers and workshops and all that stuff. So like, budgeons and all that, that wasn't really my thing. And so I was kind of pushing back on it. And during that time, like a day or two later, I I had a dream, and in this dream, I'm in a cabin, a wooded cabin, a very large wooded cabin, like a hall. And I'm just sitting on the men's side. It's just me. Nobody else is in the hall. And I'm just sitting there quietly. And there's Swami's photo, like at the front of this hall. And after a while, Swami comes out of the photo and he starts walking towards me.
Hmm.
And I'm watching him like kind of like walk towards me. And then he makes a left, comes forward, turns around, and just stands there. And I'm sitting there looking up like this. And then I wake up. That was the entire dream. That was my first Swami dream. That was my only Swami dream I've ever had. But I woke up and I just sat there in bed, just wondering what the heck happened. And so I went into work that day, and I'm still pondering that entire dream through the entire day while I'm working. And I called my dad and I was like, "Hey, maybe I should go to this conference. Maybe it's a sign." And he was like, "Well, if you want to go, you can go." And then I found out that this conference was in Chicago and I could fly by myself without my parents. And I was like, "Okay, I'm sold." And so I booked tickets. I flew to Chicago with my sister and we attended what's called the Zonal Youth Conference of 2019 in Chicago. And I booked tickets about a week or two before the actual event um, had started. And so there was a lot of like last minute like signups that I had to do. And there was I had requested to play tabla for the event, and they asked for a recording. I sent to the recording and they denied it. And so, at that time, my ego was through the roof when it came to tabla playing because, oh, like, I'm so great. Like I play so well. And so like when I flew into Chicago, I was feeling kind of like my ego was heavily bruised. I was thinking something along the lines of, oh, how could they do this to me? I'm so great. I'm so good. Like this shouldn't have happened. And so I walked into the Friday night budgeons, kind of in this kind of like brooding mentality, um, and I'd even brought a conjura with me because they wouldn't let me play an instrument. So I was like, oh, I'm just gonna sit in the back and play conjura. Like they can't do this to me. And so like with that kind of mentality, I went into the bhajan session, right? And the first bhajans plays. And I am beyond, like it took me to a whole nother level. I was beyond shocked with the amount of precision that these bhajans were at, the caliber what these budgeons were hitting were something completely different beyond my wildest imaginations. The equalizing, the level of tuning that these instruments were at, the budgeon singer calibers, like everything was perfect, 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 perfect. And it took me to a whole nother level to the point where I forgot I had a conjura with me until the end of the budgeon session, and I had goosebumps the entire time. Like it was beyond what I've ever experienced in my entire life. And for the first time, I experienced what a bhajan session could be and what a bhajan session should be. And so Friday after bhajans was dinner, and so I had dinner, and I just kind of walked around the campsite that we were at, just kind of thinking and brooding, like what am I doing? Like what could I do differently? Like how do we kind of um get to this kind of level? Because I wanted to experience it again. And so Later that night, we had a jam session. And so that jam session was just as phenomenal as the budget session itself. And, every single budget session, every single jam session had so much power, so much energy and vibrations that when I came back to Houston, like I had this huge shift into just like my thought process and my mentality. I was just kind of constantly hoarding after budgeons, and I remember talking to YAs. Um, I remember talking to you, Sriram, actually about this, about how we could uh, do a budget session like this and how to like do like a YA retreat in Region 10 to kind of replicate some of this stuff over here because it was just that amazing. And so that actually sparked my interest and my kind of my connection to Swami was that single event. Because after that event, when I came home, both of my parents were kind of shocked about the amount of like um focus and intention I had to budget because then that was that point I kind of started becoming a little bit more serious about like practicing and playing tabla. I became a little bit more serious about bhajans and how things are kind of done. And so that triggered a completely different side of me that I didn't know. And couple months go by, and of course COVID-19 hits in 2020. And during this time, I reconnected with some old friends that used to live in Dallas, and some old friends that I met at Zonal. And together we made group chats. I was added to different group chats, and I got to meet the young adults and YAs all over the US and all around the world. And so, all of us had shared a common interest with just our love for Swami and our love for bhajans. So I still remember our Zoom calls would start at 8 p.m. and I would be up till 7, 8 a.m. the next morning. Like these were like 12, 13, 14-hour Zoom calls. And we're just sitting there just like listening to bhajans, talking about Swami, talking about just various different things. And so like through I honestly feel that that's what got me through quarantine. And that's what got me through COVID was the ability to kind of network and share my love and interest in Swami and Bhajans to to others who had the similar kind of mindsets and the similar kind of uh, experiences
Mhm.
that I also had. And so all of these young adults, like as COVID kind of started becoming less and less of the health hazard, we started getting together a lot more. I started flying to various like locations like Atlanta and Jersey and Buffalo and all of these places just so that way like I could get more exposed and more like into kind of these different types of budget sessions. And even then, when going to all these button sessions, they had a very high level caliber and a very high level of just quality that you wouldn't have in a normal budget session.
Mhm.
And so like all of these, the bhajans were like my way of connecting to Swami, but it also allowed me to connect with some absolutely amazing people throughout the entire just COVID era. And even now, I'm still continuously meeting new and more YAs through through just going to different retreats and places and just meeting people through people. And one of the things that that's amazing about that is like the amount of talent, the amount of experiences that people go through never ceases to amaze me. Like right when I think I've seen it all, right when I think I've heard it all, like there's another person that comes around and then just unleashes a completely like new level of experiences and talent that I haven't heard previously. And so um that's kind of helped me like become a lot more closer with Swami. And so one of the things actually that I was talking to my dad about a while ago was he was always pushing me to do like Gayatri Mantra because there's been a lot of study and there's been a lot of experiences with people that have done Gayatri Mantra who've seen positive things happen in their life. They've seen like absolutely amazing miracles. And so, when your dad says it, um, let's be honest, most of us don't typically listen because, it's your dad saying it, it's your mom saying it, it's the same thing over and over again. So I didn't really like pay attention to it all that much. And so one day, he sends me this article about an Air Force pilot and the experiences he went through the Gayatri Mantra, and I can share it in our Region 10 Hawaii group, but later on if you guys are interested in. But that struck a very, very major chord with me, and I decided to put it to the test because I'm kind of an almost engineer, and I'm like, okay, I got to see the results of this. So I conducted a test where 1 month I didn't do any Gayatri Mantra of any sort just to see what would happen. And then the next month, I would say it at least like 3 or 4 times a day minimum just to see what would happen. And the conclusions of this result was that I noticed that a lot of the little day-to-day things that used to bother me or that used to um be a nuisance were no longer a nuisance and they didn't bother me anymore. It was almost like there was like this invisible force that would automatically kind of like make things a little bit smoother. It would kind of like it's a very, very difficult thing to kind of explain. And
Right.
I tried thinking about how to best explain this, and there's really not a good way to explain this other than as if somebody is kind of with you the entire time, just kind of like purposefully um making like adjustments so that your life is just a smidge bit easier, just a smidge bit better, just a smidge bit. And that's the best way I could possibly describe it because little things that I would be like, oh my God, like I don't know if this is gonna happen, would just completely go smoothly, like according to plan with like no issues whatsoever. And so it was just it's I would recommend for everyone try it out a little bit. You'll definitely see the results. But the best way I could possibly do this, which is probably a really bad example, and anybody who is in school, I would not recommend to do. But I was taking a course at the time called Dynamics and Control Systems, and it's one of the hardest courses that I have to take. And so on I didn't do too well on the first two exams. And I said this that was the second time I didn't do too well was in the month that I didn't do a Gayatri Mantra. So I was like, okay, this should be interesting to see what would happen. So the third month, when I was doing Gayatri Mantra, I honestly did not really study for this exam because I had already given up hope on this class, and I was like, well, it's kind of a lost cause. I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm probably going to take a massive uh, L on this one. So I actually did not study at all for this exam. I went in completely blind without any like preparation whatsoever,
Mm.
except I would chant Gayatri Mantra like every single day. And there was a YouTube live stream of it going for 24 hours. So I had it like playing on my laptop for 48 hours leading up to the exam, and I took the exam, and I'm not kidding you, I was 20 points above the curve with
Wow.
this. Yeah, 20 points above the curve, above class average. And I had like royally messed up the entire thing. So then after I got the exam results back, I was still doing the Gayatri Mantra, and I talked to the professor, and the professor was like, "Yeah, I don't think I don't know how like my performance in this class, like I honestly don't know what I'm able to do." And she's like, "Let me look at your results." And she's like, "Well, I see a positive trend. You're doing a lot better, and you knocked the ball out in the third exam. I think you're gonna be fine." And sure enough, I passed with I think like a B or something like that. I ended up passing like really.
Is it just me?
Hear Sriram? Can you hear him, Sriram?
I'm not able to
Or is
hear
it
him.
just
Yeah,
oh,
not able to hear him. Okay.
Ashish, you're cutting off.
Okay, unmute.
You're on mute. Can you
Oh, there we
unmute?
go.
Yeah.
Okay, hi, I'm back.
Go ahead.
Um, yes, but like it was a very, very interesting kind of like results that came of it. Again, I would not recommend anybody else to not study for an exam. Definitely do study for exam. I don't know how that happened. I just kind of lucked out on that one. But it was definitely an experience nonetheless.
Mm.
But what that Gayatri Mantra has kind of allowed me to do, or it has kind of helped me to do, is kind of surrender the results to Swami. And I'm not saying like don't do your thing like I did, like don't do anything and you know you'll still pass all your exams. That was just a fluke. That was like one of the offset, like if you have your data, that was the one that was like way off the chart. But I have noticed that whenever I put in like my 110% and I genuinely try and put in my 200% into whatever I'm doing, whatever the results happen, almost 10 out of 10 times will always result in it being a really good result. And so, um, it was just one of those things that like I hadn't really planned on doing, or I hadn't really planned on um, doing in my life, and it just kind of changed my entire trajectory. And so, like, between like bhajans, between Gayatri Mantra and service, like that's what I really feel kind of drew me into Swami's like fold and into Swami's activities. And I feel like now that as a YA, I understand what it means to like serve people. I understand like what bhajan sessions should be and kind of how to, become a better person I am today than I was yesterday. And I know I still have a long ways to go. I'm still not perfect. There's a lot of things I need to learn. There's a lot of things that I still have to change, but it's still a step in the right direction. And for someone who was completely lost, um, a couple years ago, he's really kind of pulled me into that right direction because, all these guys that I had met on just across the world and in the US, they helped me find my love for Swami, and they helped me find my love and passion for bhajans.
Mm.
And so, you know, Swami really used them as an instrument to kind of discover that kind of new passion and that new profound sense of love for him. And I feel like in maybe even 2, 3 years, but definitely 5 years down the road, when I look back onto this experience, I feel like it will kind of become like a full kind of circle, and I'll really see like his true plan for me. But again, I'm still working on myself. I'm still working. I still have a lot of things to do, but I'm really excited to see what he has in his plans for me in the next couple of years. But thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. Um, and I really appreciate the opportunity for you to share my experiences.
Thank you so much, man, Ashish. It's so nice when we hear young YAs, especially like you come on, a forum like this and share your journey, because I think this is the kind of journey most folks growing up are on. Um, I think someone has their hands up. I'll get to them in a minute. I think this is a very relatable journey to a lot of youngsters, in the sense that, yeah, your dad or your mom, incidentally, your family's in the Sai fold. That doesn't necessarily automatically guarantee your connection with Swami, and that's something for each individual to discover and form that bond. And it's very nice that you were saying that you were initially lost, and importantly, you said something interesting. You said that you didn't understand the value of those you hang out with, and what bearing or impact does it have on you. So how did that change after entering the fold? I mean, even out here, you're a very socially gregarious person. You genuinely put yourself out there. I know you move in quite a large group and across so many YAs, right? You're
Yeah.
truly one of those truly connected YAs into the whole YA world, in the whole YA nexus. And just because we are all quote unquote in the Swami fold, how do you even amongst us pick and choose the right apples, in that sense of the term? Just because we are in the Psi folder, have the tag Psi YAs, doesn't necessarily make us true aspirants of the journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So very interesting to me. How do you go about figuring that aspect out, and how has Swami's teachings helped you in that front? I'm
Yeah.
just
Um, I've been very, very, very lucky in the sense that Swami has consistently provided me with amazing friends, with amazing support system. Even outside the Psy family, a lot of my school friends, a lot of my coworkers, they've always been extremely supportive with a lot of my beliefs, a lot of my decisions, a lot of my just religious and personal preferences. And so honestly, it's kind of been like a gut feeling that I have where I'll kind of meet somebody and I'll kind of get a feel for like their vibes, their energies. And if my gut tells me, hey, this is going to be an amazing person, we immediately click and everything, then I usually kind of keep them, and I kind of like talk with them and I'll get to know them. But if my gut kind of tells me, maybe we should stay away from them, then I immediately kind of I mean, I still like talk with them and I still am respectful, but I try to kind of maintain a very safe level of distance, and I usually keep a guard up.
Hmm.
But honestly, it's just been Swami looking after me, kind of like looking at just kind of helping me along the entire line. But going back to how company kind of helped me, I really feel I was never really interested in budgeons before, and this is something I forgot to talk about when I was talking. But one of the things that happened when I met all these guys who were like super into budgets and everything, it got me interested into a lot of these things. And so because of their interest, and they just kept talking all about it, it developed me to kind of develop an interest and talk about it. So they'll be talking about tablas and all the different things that you can do and some of the terminologies and um very technical kind of terms. And so like in order for me to be part of the conversation, I had to learn the technical terms and I had to learn how to play like them. And so like I changed my entire playing style to match these guys so that way when I go and I meet these guys, I can like sync up with them like perfectly well. And I feel like it also allowed me to kind of explore things that I wouldn't have kind of explored anyway. I developed an interest in Dolok and a little bit into harmonium, so I kind of been dabbling into that little sector,
Yeah,
just because these guys have been going about it. And so I was like, okay, well, they're doing it. I want to do it too. And so I've gotten a lot more serious about just music in general, tabla, and so like a lot of these guys, they're all into like recording music and all that. And so, slowly I've been building up a little sound empire, um, so to speak. So, my dad has kind of gotten used to Amazon packages arriving at the house every 3 days because there's a new microphone, there's a XLR cable, there's a mixer, there's a speaker, and he's just kind of it used to be, oh, what is in the package? Like, why is that there? And then now it's kind of like, there's another package for Ashish. Like, it's probably some sound equipment. And so like it just changes your entire thing because like sound equipment, like instruments, all that wasn't really much of an interest until I met these guys and they were so interested and so like into it that I became also interested and I became like accustomed to it. And so now like I've become a lot more particular, a lot more meticulous about the way things are done, the way like the sound kind of comes and how we record and do things. So it's kind of like a direct reflection from that company that I keep.
sure. And Chitranti has also mentioned in the chat, Ashish, that this was pretty inspiring. And I think what really connected with her was how comfortable you are sharing your vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Something to learn from. And so thank you for that. I think that's why the YA sharings are, I think during my side and I connect with everyone because folks like you keep it authentic. And that's exactly what we want to hear. Someone has their hands up. So feel free to unmute and pose your question or comment. Sairam. Someone by the name of iPhone. Okay, while we wait on that person, anybody else has any questions or comments for Ashish?
Yeah, it is definitely inspiring to learn from you, Ashish. That I think probably we might only a couple of times, especially during bhajans, right? And yeah, I mean, I can particularly relate to some of what you just spoke about on in terms of how mischievous you were versus how I was in my during my times, right? And how the SSC journey specifically transformed you, and I can specifically relate that to me in many ways, many times, not just once, many times, and how Swami kind of connects those dots to kind of give that importance that you have to focus on SSC during that part of the time where you tend to basically go over everywhere. Your focus is not focused only on SSC, you're more towards sports or towards something else where and focusing your energy levels towards service and Swami's time, something that you know that's inspiring. Thanks for sharing.
It's, thank you.
Anybody else? I have another question for you, Ashish, in case someone else doesn't have any thoughts. Well, but let's just wait on the others. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts? Lakshmi shared in the chat, and so has Sheetal. Okay, one of the questions that I have for you is an interesting one in the sense that you move in the YA world, and I keep repeating it. YAs are very idealistic, enthusiastic, energetic, but at the same time, I'm sure a lot of in the current day and age, a lot of YAs aren't necessarily the younger YAs for whatever reason don't find the centers often being an avenue through which they truly well and truly connect in the realist sense of the term. Sometimes they, like you said, connect through their peer groups, like you have connected. Right, and often also during this journey of figuring out who you are, you talked about the fact that I'm now getting a better sense of who I am. Now, while a lot of other folks in and around you, while discovering themselves, may also turn cynical, either of the elders or the center settings, or this immediate Sai world around them. How do you kind of navigate that sort of climate, if it does exist, or if you do come across that sort of that sort of thought process? Do you just stay away from them and maintain that guarded distance that you talked about, or how do you actually kind of deal with that sort of thought processes and soundboards that you hear in and around you? Just curious.
Yeah, I it's a very prominent thing. I think a lot of you see it a lot, and especially when the with the younger folks and the older folks. Um, I'm always under the assumption, or like I always feel like everybody has good ideas and very good uh they have good intentions. Like everybody is meaning well. They're it's their devotion, their sadhana to Swami. Everyone may not see eye to eye. Some people think, oh, we should do it this way. Other people are thinking, oh, we should do it that way. Um, I usually try to stay away personally because, my connection with Swami is very um is more having to do with, it's kind of like a personal connection, right? And Sai Center provides that avenue for that connection as well. But I feel like we all have multiple connections to Swami. It's not just one solidified um, connection. And it's bound to happen because everybody has different viewpoints. Everybody has different ways of kind of going about it. But I feel like the most important thing is kind of being open, honest, and communicative of what you're trying to accomplish, what you feel, and then working together to collaborate to ensure that whatever it is that you're trying to do, or whatever it is you believe, is addressed, at least addressed, if not implemented or compromised upon. And I feel like that's an extremely important thing because as a young person, we like to be heard, right? We
Mm.
like to put out ideas. Some of those ideas may be extremely radical. Some of them may be um, genuinely good ideas. Some of them may be kind of like in between uh, the two extremes, right? So um, and of course, as older people, the older folks, the older generation, they've seen it all, right? They've been there since Swami was alive. They've been there, some of them before that. They have a traditional sense of what should be done and in a proper manner. And
Right.
I feel like there should be a balance between the two,
Mm.
between like some of the like more not radical, but some new ideas along mixed with traditional and kind of evolve as a group, as a organization,
Mm.
um, to whatever it is that we feel that needs we should go, essentially. But I typically like to stay away from it personally, just because like I just like the community we have, and I like the way things are kind of done. So like, I have some thoughts and opinions, but um I usually like the community that like if we're all gonna do it, let's all do it together kind of mentality.
It's awesome. I think it's important to hear your thoughts because people like you will be the leaders of our of our organization. In due course of time, people like you said, you're all of us are on a journey of growth, self development, and evolving, and it's awesome to see people like you, uh, you know, also being very conscious of that evolution and your personal journey, growth story in one sense. So, thank you so much. Any other questions or thoughts for him before we wrap up here? Okay, one final probably thought was, I've it's very interesting having just watched you as an individual. um you know I feel like your great strengths are your ability to connect with people, right? I also think you're a very good, you're solid from a process orientation standpoint. I see how detailed you document all your AV setups, and you have a real game plan going. Those are your absolute real strengths there. And I see that the whole music circle has really drawn you in and drawn you into Swami. And you talked about how Seva was actually the initial kind of route through which you were connected into the whole Sai fold. And I still remember seeing you at the Rosharon Seva, back in the day,
Yes.
after Harvey and all of that. So, um, again, what sort of Seva opportunities do you today now connect to and are actively involved in? And that's something I just wanted to understand. And also, do you feel that on the Seva front, YAs and young adults, are actively involved? And what can we do as an organization, potentially, in your opinion? Feel free to throw it out there as to how
Okay.
to involve more younger folks.
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
That's my job, man, to post the question.
Yeah, yeah, my I that the first part of like the introduction into Seva, I owe that 100% to my dad, my father. That started in high school. I used to go to a place called Testmasters. Some of you may know it, some of you may not. It's essentially a SAT ACT prep class, and so this thing would start at 10 a.m. And so typically before Testmasters, we would go to breakfast seva, and we'd do breakfast seva, and we'd do a couple of sedas because it would start prior to test masters, and then he would drop me off at test masters, and then I would do a full SAT, and then he'll come back and pick me up. So that was kind of my introduction into seva. And so these that's kind of like that's where it really started for me, was just the constant like repetition of, oh, seva, Seva, Taskmaster, Seva, Taskmaster, Seva, Taskmaster. So it kind of became like ingrained into me. And then like over time, then it kind of like spread out. But in terms of your question about young adults and Seva, I feel like a lot of us, we have different avenues for how we connect with Swami, right? So, um, the Sai Center has three main wings, right? You have the service wing, you have the devotional wing, and then you have the spiritual wing.
Right.
And a lot of us, we connect differently to this organization. We connect differently to Swami, depending on what interests us and what really draws us in. And so, I know a lot of people who they don't really like budgets, to be 100% honest. But if you have a Seva project, they will be there on time or
Right.
early. Some people, they don't really like service. That's not what resonates with them. So they will be there for every budget session. So my shift has kind of slowly gone a little bit from Seva into more into budgets. But I still connect it into both of them. But I guess one of the questions you had asked was the most recent one. I haven't been much involved into the service aspect as much as I used to be. But typically, disaster reliefs is where I kind of am involved in. I'm involved in with like the Prashanti Trust and a lot of their activities abroad, overseas, into India. So I usually help them with medical camp stuff or some of their educational programs that they're into. But most of my I guess my connection has moved more into the devotional wing because that's where I resonate into with Swami. So it's not more of a question like you could create hundreds of opportunities
Mm.
for service projects or for budgets or for like study circles. But unless the right people are kind of interested in whatever those aspects of it, there's not going to be much of an opening. So I guess the best way to kind of go about it is find out where your predominant population or predominant area of interest is. Is it in service? Is it in budgets? Is it in uh, workshops, discussions, that study circle kind of things, and then have more events, more activities towards one specific side, but also still managing the other two. So just have a little bit more button sessions than the other than service activities and you can always adjust accordingly, right? Because every generation of youth is different than the previous, right? So you may start off with a lot more service and then over time have that shift into devotion because more people are into that. So like you always it's a very cyclical, very changing kind
Mm.
of thing. So you just have to keep adjusting according to what everybody is interested to into and what people want to do.
Sure. Any other questions? One final one for you, Ashish. I know I've thrown a lot at you. But one final one is this, right? Now that you've gotten into the whole music thing and you've understood what quality should look like, you've dabbled around with the best of the folks that this organization has to offer in terms of musical talent. And we've got some amazing musical talent here as in the YAs. Oftentimes I find amongst us YAs who are musically oriented, right? While we are very nuanced and understand quality and where quality should be,
Mhm.
does that necessarily that level of subscribing to that level of quality, does that necessarily translate to connection and devotion? And the reason I say that is because sometimes if your quality at which you perform that day or for whatever reason doesn't pan out, I
Mhm.
find that it tremendously affects us. So much so that we've forgotten why we are offering it at that quality is to actually enable that connection. So
Yeah.
do you actually has your story grown in the sense that are you able to even connect through bhajans and through devotion even on your so-called off days from
Yeah.
a technical standpoint? I was just curious.
Um, yeah, it's a yes and no kind of question, right? So like, when you kind of been to like the most recent one of the big events that I've been to was a 27-hour bhajan session in Jersey. The level and quality of that was superb. Like it was phenomenal. Like I was many hours, like I lost track of time. Like before I knew it, 9 hours were gone and I hadn't eaten anything or like drank any water or anything like that. And so you have those kind of experiences, right? And when you kind of go into like some of these other bhajan sessions, like every bhajan session is great. Like it has to everyone's singing with devotion, everyone is singing with love. I can still connect with Swami, but like in the back of my mind there's that little thought like, oh, like, I still remember when this bhajan was sung during this event and that person sang it. And they sing it so well. But like it's not one that I try to think of. Like I try to be in the moment, I try to be present because one of the things I found is recordings never do justice to the actual event.
Mm.
Um, the 27-hour bhajan session I had, I went back, I listened to a lot of the recordings, a lot of the videos, and it just didn't translate a lot of the energy and power and the vibrations that you had when I was physically there.
Mm.
And so, um, because the translation doesn't quite exist, all it is now a memory.
Mm.
That's it. It's just a memory. That's all that is. It was in the moment. I was translated into a higher level of just emotional and spiritual plane of existence. It lasted 27 hours. Then you have the little hangover that happens after any Akhanda bhajans. And then all it is after that is a memory. And the only other memory thing that will help you remember is the recordings. But the recordings itself don't even capture 5 or 10% of the actual feelings. And all you have is the memory of what it felt like. And
Mm.
so, um, I feel like that's the same case with anything. Like you'll attend like great bhajan sessions, you'll attend some not so great bhajan sessions. In the moment, you're like, oh, that wasn't great, that was great, that was not great, that was they should have done this, they shouldn't have done that. But in the end, then it just all becomes a memory. And it all becomes very superficial in that sense of a memory. But in the moment, when you're experiencing things, that's where I feel like the quality of bhajan sessions makes a difference.
Mm.
So in the moment, you'll be because if you really think about it, right? If you were to have a high-powered, high-energy bhajan session, right? And then you would have one bhajan that like super slow, right? You go Shambho Shankara Deva, and then you hit, um, I don't know, I'm blinking on Antaryami Sai,
Yeah.
right? It's a huge speed bump. It just kind of like drops the energy level. So in the moment, it's gonna affect you. It's gonna have all kinds of sorts of adjustments. But like in the grand scheme of things, it's gonna not affect you that much. Because when you re-listen to that recording, when you re-listen to rewatch the videos, it doesn't have much of a dramatic effect as it does. So that's why the connection is so important, so realistic when you're physically there. And that's why bhajans in person, in my opinion, arguably, will never be able to match like Zoom bhajans or Smule bhajans or any of the pandemic stuff because it just doesn't have the same kind of vibrations and energy.
Perfect. Thank you so much, man. I know I hit you with a fair bit there in terms of questions,
Yeah, I know. Those were good questions though.
but you were patient. I'm grateful for that. Um, I think we'll move on in the interest of time. And Sister Amita is up next. I know I'm excited to listen to her. Thank you, Ashish, once again for taking the time out. And importantly, I'm excited for your journey, my man, because you are, you're one of the futures of this organization. Honestly, I believe that here locally in Region 10. And, I hope and pray that you go from strength to strength in terms of your connection with Swami. And, I think you have good, great examples to look up to, especially like you mentioned, your dad, someone, his sincerity is someone that is something that's well talked about. Those sort of tall examples, I think, hold you in good stead. And I'm excited for you, my brother. So yeah,
Thank you so
uh,
much. I really appreciate it.
yeah. With that being said, let's move on to Sister Amita. Amita, if you can give us a quick introduction and get going. I know you have a presentation, so feel free to share your screen. Let me make you a co-host for what it's worth, so that you can share your screen potentially. I don't know if that even has a bearing, but go for it.
Hey everybody, so Salam all. I'm glad to be here speaking with all of you. First of all, may I go ahead and share my screen?
Go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. So, can you all see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So Sriram asked me to speak to all of you about the presence of Sai in my life. And I wonder what I should say. Then, I realized that I should discuss the presence of God in my life. So the theme of today is the presence of God in my life and how God has manifested in both visible and invisible ways in my life. So as you all know, God is a constant in our lives. And there are times when we may feel horrible and we may not even feel his presence, but he's always there. The path that we travel on may not even be what we wanted, but we all have the capacity within us to find God within us and learn how to be happy. This is how I came to realize that. So I was born in Plano, Texas on Tuesday, November 3rd, 1998. And when I was 5 days old, the doctor said that I have a global disability. And I was in the NICU for a month. And I'm legally deafblind and I'm neurodivergent. So when I was born, I had to have 2 major surgeries since my intestines were malrotated and I could not eat by mouth. And the NICU doctors gave a very poor prognosis for me since I had so many health issues. And they weren't sure whether I would have any quality of life. This is a picture of me in the NICU at just 2 days old, 2 days. So my parents were not at the Sai fold at this time, but my family has always been very religious and very accepting of all faiths. And as you can imagine, my parents were pretty devastated after hearing this diagnosis. But they prayed and reflected on a way forward with me. And it looked pretty bleak back then. I mean, here they were with a tiny baby, and they had no clue as to what would happen next. So my parents strongly believe that prayers matter, and the good energy and vibrations that come from prayers always bring good. So they requested prayers, and everyone prayed for my good health and good life. Now, at that time, my dad worked for a very small company, and everyone who worked with him and who worked for him and who he worked for, all of them knew I was in the hospital. One of my dad's colleagues was a Mormon, and he asked if he could pray to bless me. My parents welcomed him home, and he brought the holy water to baptize and bless me. This embodies the Sai value that God is one. I have always felt this inclusiveness of all faith in my life. When we pray to him, our prayers may be answered in different ways than we expect, but there is a path or a way forward. Now, as I turned 1, my health declined. I would turn blue and stop breathing. This happened frequently, and the doctors couldn't explain why it happened, nor could they find the cause. So my parents had to stay up all night to monitor my breathing, and they did it for months. Then when I was 1, I got an RSV, which is a viral pneumonia, and I was admitted to the children's hospital. So the doctors in the NICU put me on a ventilator since my lungs had fluid. And at this time, my paternal grandmother told my mom to pray to Matapalli Lakshmi Narasimhan, God and Goddess. My parents had lost all hope, and they basically did what my grandmother said just to make her stop nagging. But then a miracle happened. Mukur Swamiji, he was at the temple at that time, and he did a prayer and a homam for me. He said that he felt that God spoke to him and said that Amita will be okay. So he wrote my parents a letter. My parents actually didn't believe this at all. They just went about the normal hospital routine. But the day that the letter arrived, the internist who was scoping my lung said, "Oh, let me take a deeper look at her windpipe." The internist saw constriction, reported it to the head doctor, who came and took a look. They ordered an MRI, and when they did, they saw a vascular ring around my windpipe and my food pipe. This was a major breakthrough. The doctors immediately called for a surgery. Just by chance, 2 of the country's leading pediatric cardiac surgeons happened to be free that day and said they would do my surgery. Surgery went off well, and 1 month later, Dr. Leonard and Dr. Nakamoto, who did the surgery, called me a miracle baby when my mom took me for follow-up. It was truly the blessing of God that I'm here today talking to all of you. I believe that I probably would have died being on the ventilator, but Swami had another path for me. A couple of years later, it was fall 2003. I was in the deaf ed class at Pearson Preschool. My parents would drop me off for school each day, and on the way there, they noticed that the Dallas Unitarian Church had a lot of Indian people coming in and out. So my mom was curious and went to see what it was about. She parked there one day and spoke to the first lady who came up. Just so happened that my mom spoke to Chitra Auntie, who is the current president of Region 10. Chitra Auntie spoke to my parents about Sai Center, and that is how we came into the Sai fold. I joined Balvikas in fall 2004 when I was 5. I loved Balvikas. I loved my C teachers. I loved participating in Ishwarama Day, Swami's birthday, and all the other birthday celebrations throughout the year. These two pictures. These are what is from. I think they're from Story Group or 1A. So kindergarten, first grade. You can see my class here, and you can see one of the presentations that I put one of my poster boards along with some of the stories. You know what? I don't really think about it. This is group 1A, first grade, now that I think about it. But yeah, and you could clearly see the enthusiastic look on my face. I love Sai Center, as you could tell. And I love the budget, and play practice was my favorite. Dressing up, practicing my dialogue. I love being there in the center and the positive energy there. Everyone was always smiling and happy to be there at the center. I love budget, and in kindergarten, my favorite budget was Radha Krishna Karuna Lola. And as I grew older, my favorite budget was love is my form, truth is my breath, bliss is my food. I'm going to play this video for you. It is a nice video of Swami, and I hope you all enjoy it as much as I think. I'm sorry. So basically, as y'all can tell, I really love this bhajan, and it shows that Swami shows us a path on how to live. He gives us a roadmap of the values to follow in our life. It's so simple and elegant all at the same time. I have to say my favorite part of C was the application of the values we learned. Love, peace, truth, non-violence, and right conduct. Before I go on, I just wanted to say these are the pictures of the various Ishwarama Day. This is me performing with my class. That's me with Chitra Auntie, and that's me with my class, and that's me with Nirajan Uncle, as you can see. Yeah, let me just go to the next. So one time in 2011 where Swami manifested himself in my life was when my parents were debating a medical procedure for me. They were worried and did not know whether to go ahead or not. And at that time, I went with my mom for a bhajan in somebody's home. That auntie came to my mom and said, "Oh, I don't know why, but today I got this manifested vibhuti and I want you to have some." So she explained that one of her friends had a bhajan in her home, and this photo was of Swami literally pouring the vibhuti. So she had some of that vibhuti from that friend, and she felt like she had to give some to my mom. My mom took that as a direct sign from Swami that all would be good, and my parents went ahead with the procedure. It went off well. Now, as you all know, in the center, we do many projects. Each service project we did throughout the years, whether it was the food shelter or the sandwich seva, embodied the principle that Swami has laid out for all of us. So as you can see, here are some pictures from another service project of our Dallas Site Center. And this is the community garden service project, as you can see, which segues right into my next topic. So we have a huge community garden in the Dallas Site Center, where our Site Center members volunteer and grow vegetables, which they donate to the food pantry. So in 2014, the project was expanded to build home vegetable plots where we would grow something and collect the produce and donate it to a food pantry. Everybody named their garden, and as a family, we discussed and chose that we wanted to embody right conduct or right action in our family, because the concept of doing the right thing, making the right choice, is difficult. So we wanted to consciously adopt it as our family value. So my vegetable patch was called the Right Conduct Garden. And as you can see in the pictures, we placed our raised vegetable bed right here in the backyard, right against the wall of the master bedroom. We grew herbs, cucumbers, we grew squash. We took some of the produce to Minnie's food pantry in Plano. This is the vegetable garden here. As you can see, this is where it was. You can see it right here in this picture. It's right against the master bedroom. And then over here in our backyard. And this is a little bit funny. So we were basically harvesting the vegetable. Then we dug deeper and we realized we had forgotten a vegetable. It was an overgrown cucumber. It was huge. We don't know how it turned out. But just sorry, it's really funny. I don't remember what we did with that cucumber. I think we also gave it off to Minnie's food pantry. But yeah, I can see it's clearly an overgrown cucumber. We just totally forgot about that. It grew really great. But so yeah. So Science Center is the most inclusive place. Everybody stops and generally talks about you. They care about you. And I only had a few friends through middle school and high school. So I really enjoyed my Sunday Science Center time. Now, not to say that it was all easy and simple. I mean, I also struggled a lot in Science Center, and the lessons got harder. I couldn't hear very well, and I could not pronounce the slokams very well. I got frustrated. My parents and I discussed my feelings with Chitra auntie and with Aruna auntie in the Dallas Science Center. They also spoke to me and they said, "We love you, Amita, and we're there to support you and help you however you want." After thinking a lot, I actually quit Science Center after 9 years of class, and I did not graduate C. Instead, the full support of my C teacher, SSC teacher, and Science Center members, I decided to still participate by doing some photography of the events in the center. I would also water the community garden at the center. So I was there for small service projects, but I was more like in the peripheral range, like in the backstage. In 2017, I got admission to UT Austin, and I was one of the first students in Plato DefEd, 20 years, to get admission to UT Austin. My parents were set on me going to UT Dallas. We had only prepped for that, but when this opportunity came, we prayed to God for a sign. And I was like, "Swami, give me a sign. I have to go far away to learn. I am an only child." So my parents were very doubtful and unwilling. Now, I'm not sure why. My parents never told me this, but they said Bhagavan just gave us a huge sign. So you have to go to UT Austin. I just planned to join the Austin Science Center back in 2018, but then my mom fell ill, and by 2020, COVID came. And it was difficult going back and forth between Dallas and Austin all the time. I was isolated and alone. It was a very difficult time, as it was for many. See, intersections are like deserts. I am a woman with a disability. I cannot drive. Conversations are hard. This is a rather lonely intersection. People become transitional. Life becomes transitional. People move on. Life moves on. The universe keeps going. There's no stopping it. It just keeps moving. Everybody keeps moving on. We just keep going. I've struggled a lot in the past few years. But with Swami's grace, I graduated in December 2021 With a double major in psychology and the human dimensions of organization, God's presence is shown to us in so many ways. Now, the next step was to find a job. I was interviewing and interviewing. I was trying for psychology jobs, human resource jobs, policy jobs, etc. I couldn't land any job. I would disclose my disability at the outset and then I would be ghosted. It was very difficult. Sadly, people with disabilities are discounted and they are left behind in the job market. Unfair, cruel, yes, but it's the sad truth though. So I felt like I was praying so much, but God wasn't answering. You know what we call luck? It actually just Swami saying, hey, you know, I am there. I am still there for you. I am around. I am around you. My job counselor emailed me this flyer about this organization that helps neurodiverse people get jobs. And she said, why don't you try with them? So I sent in my application to them and they helped me to get a job. So now I work as a data analyst at a great company. And I never imagined that I would be working in tech, but I'm so happy to be here. It aligns perfectly with my love for numbers and patterns. Now I have one last story for you about how God listens to our prayers. In May of 2020, my dog Scout became very ill and we took him to a specialist hospital where we discovered that the large and painful ulcer that we thought he had was actually 3 large bleeding cancerous tumors in his stomach and liver. The doctor said he was too weak to have to put him to sleep. I was not ready. I was so upset and we were in a bad place. My mom was also sick and we were trying back and forth so much. Life was very hard due to COVID-19 and the list just seemed like too much. My parents scheduled a doctor to come to our house on Sunday, May 24th to put him to sleep. I was very upset with my parents. My parents said, please pray to Bhagwan. God always answers your prayer. If you pray, he will surely show you a way. So even if it's not the way you want, there will always be a way. I prayed so hard. I was desperate. I told Bhagwan, I am not ready yet. I need more time with it. And on Sunday, May 23rd, one day before we would put him to sleep, we were doing his bucket list at the time. And one of his favorite food was an egg sandwich from McDonald's. The egg, cheese, bacon sandwich, that one from McDonald's. Well, we removed the bacon, don't worry. So basically it was that sandwich from McDonald's. And I swear we put it right in front of him. You know what happened? He started eating. He just got up and started eating. And my parents and I were shocked. They canceled his appointment and said, let us see what happened. He got better. The cancer did not go away, but the bleeding just stopped. He survived for more than a year after that. It was a precious time that helped me accept the inevitable and love on him. Eventually, on July 26, 2021, he did pass away. But that extra time God gave was very precious to me. I like to think that God showed me his infinite love for all. He loved all animals, as you could see in the video of the budget that I showed you all a couple of minutes ago, where animals just love him. And I really think he gave Scout some grace and allowed me to have extra time with him. These are some pictures of Scout in his happier days. You could see him scavenging around in the backyard for stuff, I don't know. And oh yeah, just a factoid, he had 3 legs. You can't tell, but it was right there, right behind the front paw. It was right there. This is him with his favorite stuffed animal, Nala. I don't know what he's doing in the picture. He's like trying to show he's trying to show his dominance over Nala. It's a really funny thing. But yeah. And we still have the stuffed animal today. And right there you can see his 3rd leg, the missing leg. But yeah, I'm very thankful that Bhagwan gave me that extra 1 year and 2 months with him. I'm very grateful for that. So my message to all is that Swami's presence is around you. I realize that as we go through life is hard. Future does look scary sometimes. I worry a lot about what the future looks like. I mean, I'm learning to be independent. I worry about my physical and my financial independence. How will I make it? Will I be okay? I also feel anxious about the discrimination, the state of the world that we live in right now. But every night for the last 20 years, I have slept with Swami's photo under my pillow. And before I go to bed, I will say a prayer to God. Now, I don't know what the future holds, but I know that he's there for me. And I just have to intentionally look for and feel that God will take care of me. He is there for me. And I just have to keep working towards my goal. And I know that he is right beside me. I try to use Swami's values to guide me. These values give a large picture for all of us. Love all, serve all, strive for internal and external peace. Non-violence will always go for right conduct every moment of life. There is a right conduct, ordered action, and we should always pick that right action. I have to say, I keep failing. I do get mad and anxious. I want to sometimes rage at the inequity of the world, but I will keep trying. That is what Swami wants me to do. He knows I am not perfect and he still loves me. So that is all that I have to share today. So thank you so much for listening to my talk, for taking your time to listen to my talk. Thank you so much for that. I hope you have an amazing weekend, amazing rest of the Friday evening, and an amazing weekend. Thank you, Asylum.
My God.
Wow, man.
They take a breath. Amita, it's incredible. I don't know what to say. I teared up for sure. Thank you, Chitranti, for giving us this sort of a YA, it fills us with pride. This is what, the SSC program's all about and the YAs are all about. You began by saying prayer, the power of prayer, and you ended with it. I don't know what to say. I will, probably this is the last time I host my Sai and I before I pass it on to the others to host it. But this is an episode I'll come back to. I always watch all the episodes over and over again, but Amita, I don't know how to thank you. I'm truly indebted to you. It was like a monologue from Swami through you. You're not a miracle child, you're a divine child, is what you are.
Thank you.
I don't know. I rarely get this emotional, but it's befitting if you were to shed a tear, to shed it for a soul like you. I'm proud to be in your midst, is what I'll say, and to stand shoulder to shoulder with you, a fellow YA. That's what I'm so proud about. Anyone has any thoughts, anything that you guys want to share, feel free to do so.
Yeah, extremely wonderful. I think I just can't stop, listening to you. Frankly, I was wondering we should probably have one dedicated session just with you at the center, hosted here in Dallas. Hopefully, that's what we were offline chatting. Me and Chitra and were offline chatting, but I think it's such a great pleasure and wonderful experience to listen to you. Such a nice orator. I have not seen, quite frankly, in any recent times, hearing to anybody that powerful message that been delivered such simply, right? I think we should have you come down to Dallas.
No, I have to add.
I want to listen to you. At least I want to listen to you as much as I could. So.
I want to add that she's our preferred narrator for all Ishrama Day plays. Remember Amita? And I think Sheetal is also my student. Like I think we always used to.
Thank you, Auntie.
She's a dedicated narrator. Yeah. And you all can see why.
Yeah.
That fire, right? She's on a fire once she starts.
She's on a roll. She's like a
thank you. It's all Bhagwan's grace, really. With Sarumal, thank you.
And I love the fact that such powerful messages, while Prasanna rightfully said it was, very simply put, but also laced with so much humor and in your quintessential style. I mean, it was fantastic. Just listening in, just amazing the amount of faith. And what I found was it was also not a story. It was not a La La Land kind of story. It was very real, rooted in a lot of ups and downs and pains and difficulties. And through that, the devotion and the love and the faith and the belief in prayer, right conduct, we as a family took that upon us because that's the right thing to do. Sometimes it can be difficult, but you ought to do what is right. I don't know. You were just hitting it out of the park. Each word was a pearler. I'm blessed to have listened to this. That's all I can say. I don't know what else to say.
Mainly the connection to the center, right? I think the grounding onto the center when having your own experience is something that is definitely inspiring to all the ways. But to to push the OAs to a level where we should be grounded to the center, even though I think we all have our own planes, but I think the center is a place where we get to learn a lot more. And center is a place where I think we should be more grounded to. So that's a message that I personally get from you, Amita. Right? I think that's probably a message for every other OA here too. So a hidden message than what you actually spoke about how Swami is actually connected to everyone, even if he just feels like he's probably not there. But I think that's something to take for every OA here. So.
Yeah, someone else.
I just want to chime in. This is Naranjan Uncle. So, hi Amita, Sairam. How are you doing, kiddo?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Okay. There's one thing which, if you guys have noticed, Amita is very clear in her thoughts, and her thoughts leads into actions. Her actions speak all the volumes of words. You don't have to, you don't have to find a hidden meaning or anything like that in Amita's actions. She says what she says, and she does what she says. So that's amazing quality. It's you're living the constant integrated awareness kind of a thing. So your thought, word, and deeds are aligned already in all your activities, sweetie. So it's amazing to see. A lot of things to learn. Stay blessed, and thank you very much for sharing, Sarah.
Thank you. So Swami's grace, really. Thank you.
Say what you mean and mean what you say. That you certainly do, my girl. It's fantastic. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? Anyone who wants to share? I completely understand if you're at a loss for words, because that's what I feel.
On a lighter note, Amita, can I little bit out about what you're fan about? What show you like?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
A lot of people will connect to this, right? A lot of people will connect to Amita with, she loves Office. She's a walking encyclopedia. Anytime you want to quiz her, she will tell you exactly which episode, what character said what. She just loves it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And there are a ton of Office fanatics even here in Austin amongst the YA community, incidentally.
Very nice.
So yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Michael Scott once said, sometimes I don't know how to start a conversation. I just keep going and say where it takes me, like an improvisation. And that's exactly what I did with the speech today. Kind of, but yeah.
You nailed it all right.
So, thank you.
Anybody else? Any thoughts? Any questions? The silence is sometimes good, it lets everything seep in, and you kind of soak it in. You were like a train, a bullet that was going at 1,000,000 miles with so much loaded. It was just a joy.
Thank you. Do you don't mind if I stop sharing my screen, or do you want?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Yeah.
Given that you've so befittingly, kind of brought this session more or less to an end, feel free to end it whichever way you want to end it. And I want to first also thank you. I think thank Swami most importantly, because I have never met you, and you haven't met me. I know that for a fact. But I don't know why it even entered. Swami planted the thought that I should reach out to you, and have you share today. But boy, was it a blessing. So I truly want to thank Bhagwan for it. I think Bhagwan runs the show as ever, and that's why you see the YAs who come out here are incredible souls. Every one of them, be it the Ashishes of the world or the Amitas of the world, we are blessed. We are so blessed to be in the midst of these ways. I really can't thank you guys enough for coming forward and being so authentic, being so genuine, being so real, and like Niranjan uncle said, saying what you mean and meaning what you say. So with that being said, Amita, bring us to a close in whichever format or fashion you deem fit. Sorry.
Of course, first of all, I noticed that some people were asking me for some of the pictures, old pictures. Feel free to directly message me on WhatsApp. I have all the pictures. Feel free to direct message me on WhatsApp. I can send it to you via there. Just let me know which picture you want to see. I'm happy to send them over to you all. And my final message to you all is that Swami's presence is a constant in our life. Path we get may not be the path that we choose, but God is always there. And I think that's something all of us have to remember.
Yeah, and if you could, and I'll just end it with Om and 3 Shantis. Thank you so much, Amita. Om Shanti. 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 Saram, everyone. Have a great weekend. Thank you once again, both of you. Saram.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Sai Ram.
Hi, Ram.
Very well, thank you.